Today I've been asked to talk about innovative strategy to lower psychological injury in the workplace. But what I like to do is kind of to cross the title out for us. And why? Because what I like to share is not exactly innovative. I believe it's revolutionary, in a sense that we are going back a century for what psychology is already known. And particularly in 98, a very popular psychological principle taught us that performance improves with stress, also called arousal, but only up to a certain point. Up and beyond that point, performance drops. So little stress makes us bored, disengaged. High stress makes us overwhelmed. This has been taken further by all the modern sciences about stress, looking at the fight-flight response, and so on. And what they've said to us is that our best performance happens when we actually feel safe. And safety depends upon the same physiological mechanism that we were talking this morning. Basically, we reach safety when we are in that space that we can call play zone. Play zone is a zone where we actually don't have to use our energy to fight, defend, but we can use that freely to create, connect, and concentrate. And this is really what the revolutionary part comes in. So now, as a scientist, we know that we do have a hidden sixth sense that we didn't know before, and that sense is called interoception. Interoception is our ability as a human being to know that something is going on inside our body, and that particular system scans the environment all the time, wherever you are, and determine whether we feel safe or unsafe. At that level of safety, get communicated back to the brain and immediately influence how we feel, our mental well-being, and how we act, our performance. Isn't that brilliant? So, psychological safety. I believe everyone in the room have heard about psychological safety. It's a foundational leadership concept, but it kind of assumed that people are available for connection, right? But what about if the nervous system isn't? And so now all we know, and I told you before, we kind of know that safety can't be a mandate. It doesn't come through words, it comes through biology. And it actually communicated through unconscious signals. What actually was mentioned about autonomic nervous system, which pass through how I speak, the tone of my voice, the pacing, my facial expression, my hands gesture, and my body language. Sorry, I'm Italian, I can't help. And so if the body doesn't feel safe, neither the mind. And here's the second fascinating thing. Our physiological cues not just influence how we think and we act, but also influence how others around us feel and act. Isn't that brilliant? And so basically, we have power on whether others can access creativity, clarity, and connection. And this is because we kind of step forward from the reptile state, so we are human. As human, we evolved to survive in a different way, which is tuning on each other's rhythms. So think back. Have you ever encountered a good leader in your life or a bad leader? Just think about how that leader made you feel. And how he made you feel is just biology in action. So, okay, let's talk some fact now. I'm not gonna go to read through all these numbers, you probably know better than me. But the bottom line of all of this, the takeaway is psychological injury, as we heard many times today, claims are roughly doubling have doubled over the last 6 years after the pandemic. And of course, a huge impact in terms of lost productivity, costs, but more importantly, no one is immune. So what has been shown that successful leaders are as affected as anyone else. So the prevalence of mental health symptoms is actually the same across all the levels of seniority. So we also need to acknowledge that a lot of step forward has been made since then because of raising awareness about this problem. But despite the greater investment in workplace well-being, there is still a lot to be done. And I think the main thing to tackle are stigma, psychological hazard, create more sustainable ways of working, and strengthen communication and connection in the workplace. So just take a moment to be intentional about what authentic well-being might look like. We can explore 3 directions that are emerging in the research space that might help to shape this vision to us. The first one is creating human-centered changes. The second one is creating new ways of working. And the third one is creating connection in the workplace. So let's dive into the first one. So our first intention should be to create change that understand how, as a human being, we work best. So that means that everyone has a role, and 2 parties, bottom up and top down, has to get together and agree. So what that means is, for leaders, this starts with 2 things. First, practicing awareness. It's becoming more and more evident that awareness is the missing leadership skill these days. And that means, going back to what we learned before, reconnecting back to what's happening inside you and becoming aware of how you feel and how all this physiology shaping your behavior and how others are actually feeling around you. For example, when your body is calm and open, others feel the same and they can thrive. Second, vulnerability. Leaders, to be truly leaders, need to be authentic. Admit what they don't know, admit they also affected by changes, and admit that honest conversation can bring emotional component to it. For team members, okay, the work starts with checking in with yourself. No one will do that for you. And that means try to work out what that play zone means to you, what fuels you, what restores you, and what wears you out. And again, prioritize yourself and prioritize rest. Apparently, there are about 6 different types of rest that human being needs to actually recharge fully. And it's not just sleep, as we all think. It's mental, physical, social, sensorial, and so on. Spiritual, for who believes that. What our second intention should be? It should be to create new ways of working. And how can we do that? I don't know if you heard about the term chronotype. Chronotype is our unique way of where our physiology works. So now the evolution of flexible working is called chrono working. I don't think it's feasible in any environment, but that means is first becoming aware of where you work best, where is your creativity higher, and start having conversation with your manager and with people around you about this and try to facilitate this, because working with their biology will be much easier than working against it. Another thing would be risk factors are still there. So one of the largest Australian survey in 2024 have identified that the most common workplace risk factor is emotionally drained, stressful, and monotonous workplace. So there is still some work that we need to do around that. Another layer is toxic behavior. Toxic behavior should never be normalized. The third thing is asking what people need. There's such a variety of generation and age range, and so people are different and we work different. We are different because internally we work differently. So I think every employer has the responsibility of asking people and providing people time, resources, and emotional space for them to do the job well without having to protect their mental health. So the third intention is to create connected workplaces. And what that means is just really stepping away from the idea that mental health is my own problem and talking about prior injury, my history. 1 minute? Okay. Uh, it's just because it's a relationship problem, it's a biological exchange, it's everyone's problem. Second, prioritize relationship over speed. That's also what came out from the Australian survey. People want conversations. Third thing is co-design and co-create initiatives. So this picture is a beautiful initiative that one of the youngest team in our team has brought up and asked us to go together to a bonsai workshop. And then turned out to be one of the amazing, powerful moments of connection within the team. So that's just an example. So very rapidly, 2 examples of innovation. Psychological positive approach. It builds on shifting away from fixing problem, reduce negativity, and it looks at just what we're doing well, what's working, what's our strengths, just build on that capability, and also building a culture of positive emotion, main meanings, people feeling fulfilled, and also embedded small practicing into this workplace that people can do every day to build up over time. The second one, and I'm a bit biased about it, is about wearables. So wearables are based on the principle that what you cannot measure, it can't be managed, right? And so there are a lot of studies out there showing that wearables can be useful because they can help you to measure your interoception, be in control of what's happening inside you. And also, they can be very helpful to track daily stress, meaning to try to understand, are there anything that I'm doing that is putting me in a very nice and restorative state, that what I know I'm in the kind of replay zone, or is something draining me out? And this picture reflects a lot of our team were wearables, and that's what was happening after a couple of hours of bonsai workshop. We were all in such a nice restorative state, and we were at the alert that actually did good for us. The third thing is wearables can help to prevent burnout. If you look out there, there are a lot of big companies that are trying to implement this. And how that works, this is just an example of a person, is a real person, who actually were alert that her heart rate over 6 months has gone up. And they were actually showing that there were major signs of strain in this person's body. So, because burnout is not something that happened one day, it's just over time and silently. So having someone that help you to keep track of that is what you need. And if you have looked at the poster up there, we actually tried one of the similar intervention in an ED care setting. So come up to the very end. If we really want to prevent psychological injury, we need to go back to what we know about the human being. Stress influences our physiology, our body, and our mind. Safety is a concept that can shape others. So how our physiology shapes others and make us either feel safe or unsafe. And when we feel safe, we thrive because we feel good, and also we can perform better.